Hello and welcome to the show. I'm on Forza Motorsport 5 today, and I'm going to be looking at this is my own personal top 10 best value cars in this game. Yeah, this is my own opinion, and I'm sure some of you will disagree with me. Hopefully some of you will agree with me on this one. But yeah, I'm going to take a look. As you know, Forza 5 is a little bit harder to earn money on, so of course you want to get the best value for your money, if you like. Now, I'm not going to include cars such as this Formula 1 car. You could argue, and I could kind of see your point, that 2 million is not really that much for a Formula 1 car. It's the fastest you can go around a track, pretty much. There is nothing will beat this around a track. But 2 million is quite a lot of credits. So yeah, the Formula 1 car won't make it onto this list other than for this kind of opening sort of explanation-y bit. Anyway, at number 10 we have the Toyota MR2 Supercharged. Now this is a DLC car, which is a little bit of a shame because it's a very, very nice car. It costs just 14,000 credits, which is pretty much as cheap as you can get a car on Forza 5. I think there are a couple of vehicles at about 12,000 credits, but I don't think anything goes lower than that, certainly nothing under 10. So yeah, this is near enough as cheap as you can get a car, and it's absolutely excellent. I really do quite like this little MR2. Yes, it has been designed with a ruler, pretty much. It's not the prettiest of cars. I still quite like the looks of this vehicle, but yeah, it's a bit angular. However, it's a lovely car to drive, this one. Doesn't have too much power, so if you get things a bit sideways and a bit wrong, you can deal with it. It's not a big thing, but you don't really find yourself doing that. Now, I am probably going to say this a lot in this episode. The cars in Forza 5 tend to be kind of slidey. It's just the general characteristics of the game. The cars have a lot less grip than they did on 4, a lot less than they do have on a lot of other racing games. So, yes, you will get this car sliding. You may well see me sliding some of the vehicles around in this video. However, on the most part, this MR2 is very, very well behaved, and yeah, for 14,000 credits, you really can't go wrong with this car. It's an excellent little vehicle. It starts off, I think it's about halfway through D-Class, I can't remember quite. I'm not sure on the classes quite, because it's all, I'm used to Forza 4 still. Yeah, it's kind of around the middle of D-Class, I think. And yeah, it really is a very, very good car, and if you haven't given it a go, I really highly recommend you give it a drive. Up next, we have the Nissan 370Z. I don't think we've ever had this car on a First Gear FailRace, any of our videos. I don't think so. I'm just now having a think. If we have, I don't think we have. However, it is on this list. It costs 37,000 credits. Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive than the MR2. You could buy almost 3 of them for the cost of this. However, of course, this is a bit faster. It's around the top of C-Class, this vehicle. And again, this is another car that really surprised me. I should use this car more often because, it's a really nice car to drive. It's incredibly forgiving. Like the MR2, yeah, you understand, it's not particularly powerful and it's very, very light. But this, I wasn't expecting this to be as forgiving as it was. You know, if you outbrake yourself a little bit, you can normally correct it. If you start getting a bit sideways, you can deal with it. Which I should point out is kind of a big deal in Forza 5. You need to be able to do that. And yeah, this is a genuinely lovely car to drive, and at 37,000 credits for a C-Class vehicle, it is pretty damn good value for money. Yeah, I was thoroughly amazed by the 370Z. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit more expensive on our list of vehicles, as it is still a fairly lowish PI. But again, another car massively worth the money, and it may well have been overlooked by some people. So again, there's another one. I recommend you go and give it a drive, as yeah, a lot of people may well have forgotten about this car. It might not be the prettiest of vehicles. I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of the styling of it, but never mind. Up next, in 8th place, we have got the 97 Honda Civic Type R. I've talked about this car before in Forza 4 and Gran Turismo. This is an excellent vehicle in both of them, and again, it is another absolutely excellent vehicle on here. it is probably the best handling front-wheel drive car on this game. I cannot think of one that is better. The Fiat Coupe on Forza 4 was also excellent, however that's not made it to 5, so yeah, this is pretty much undisputed the best handling front-wheel drive car, and it costs just 20,000 credits at the top of D-Class, and yeah, there is just nothing I can really fault about this car. This is how hot hatches should be made. It weighs, I think, at £2,400, whereas the modern Civics are weighing nearer £3,000. Okay, it's not quite as powerful, I think it's about 180 horsepower, the modern ones are getting around near 200. However, because this car doesn't weigh anything, yeah, the power to weight ratio is better on it, and it's just an excellent car. It's another one that is just huge amounts of fun to drive. You will forget that this thing is front wheel drive. If you are a real idiot, of course, you can get yourself into trouble, but you can do that in pretty much any car. Yeah, it's got sort of a slightly odd handling characteristics. It's got quite a lot of lift off oversteer that you've got to kind of get used to. And yeah, of course you can make it understeer if you're being a bit silly. But no, this is another genuinely fantastic handling car, and all of that for just 20,000 credits. That's very good value for money. Yeah, it really is. And this is probably one of my favourite hot hatches on this game, if not my favourite of the lot. Up next, we have got a Corvette Z06. A mere 44,000 credits buys you this car. It's around the mid of B class, and this is an interesting one. We've raced these in in the single make races, the cycle production style races that we did in versus the community at this very track, and I'm pretty sure it's this version. It was. And yeah, we had some problems. There were a few crashes. People had a bit of trouble getting used to these cars, as the brakes on it are not fantastic. You do have to brake a lot earlier. Maybe not a lot earlier, but you do have to brake earlier than you would ideally like. However, once you've got the hang of that, and you will get the hang of that within 2 laps, how the brakes work, everything else is excellent. The handling is very, very good. Again, it's another car that surprised me how well it handled. It wasn't sort of the leery sideways scariness that I was expecting from a sort of super muscle car. You can put the power down fairly easily, because this isn't the most powerful, most up-to-date version, if you like, of the Corvette. If you're doing this in the ZR1, you'd be all over the place, probably. But yeah, you can still get it sideways, but it hasn't got so much power and so much torque that it kind of overwhelms you. It's a nice car to drive again, and while yeah, it hasn't got massive power, it's still got plenty of acceleration and plenty of top speed. It's also, I quite like the look of the older Corvettes. Is it C5? I never remember how they name the blooming things. Yeah, again, another car I just think is overlooked by quite a few people that I would highly recommend you give a go, because it's a lovely car to drive. Now, the Lotus 211, when we did this countdown, if you like, on Forza 4, the Lotus 211 was right up near the top, and now it finds itself down in 6th. There is a very good reason for that, and that is because the 211 is nowhere near as good as it once was. It's still very good value for money, don't get me wrong. This car costs 76,000 credits for a kind of middling A-class vehicle, and it is, if you get everything right, it is still very, very quick. The problem is it just does not have the grip, it does not have the handling of the car on previous Forza games and on other games, and yeah, it's very, very tricky to drive. Through the follow-through, sorry. This is one of the very few cars that could take it flat out in Forza 4. Can't do that anymore. You try and do that, you'll oversteer and you'll have a very, very big crash. The back end of this vehicle is just not planted on the road at all. You can be turning into the corners. The first corner here at the Top Gear track, it will start oversteering. You don't even have to be on the power. The back end just wants to step out. And that makes this car quite tricky to drive. As I said, if you get everything right, I'm sure after many laps of practice, you will get the hang of this vehicle. This time I managed to not have it oversteer on me. Yeah, many laps of practice, maybe a bit of tuning. All of these cars I'm talking about are completely stock. Yeah, you could probably dial that out of it, but it's not as nice as it once was to drive. That's why it slips down some places on the leaderboard. It's a bit of a shame. I do like the 211. It's a bit of a pain to get used to, this car. Still very quick, do not get me wrong on that, but just not as nice. Not as nice as it once was. We come to the halfway mark at number 5 with a Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. This thing costs a mere 51,000 credits. That is really, really rather cheap for what this car is. And you know, you look at it, it's a big muscle car with a lot of power, and you kind of have an idea of how this vehicle is going to drive. It doesn't. It does not drive like that at all. I was, like, with the lack of grip you generally get in Forza 5, I was expecting this to be absolutely all over the road. It wasn't. I don't know how. I'm not sure what magic they have done to this Camaro to make it stay on the road, but it is really not that hard to drive. The Lotus is definitely harder to drive than this Camaro. That is a weird thing to say. That is a really weird thing to say. However, it is true. The Camaro is a really nice car to drive. Yeah, I mean, again, you will get it sideways without too much effort on this one. However, it's so controllable. Like, if it's going sideways, I know I can just, like, next time round I'll be able to dial back just a tiny bit and then it'll be working. If you do go sideways, you'll be able to keep it under control. Even the brakes are fairly good, despite this thing being fairly large and fairly heavy. Yeah, it's a really good car to drive, this one. Incredibly good value for money on this car. This will scare quite a lot of supercars, I would imagine. It's just on the cusp of A-class. As standard, we get very sideways, but again, I'm keeping it under control. It's not sort of madly flinging itself around across the road. Yeah, this will scare supercars, I would imagine. It is a very, very nice vehicle to drive. And again, another one might be a little bit overlooked. Highly recommend you give this car a go. Also sounds absolutely amazing. Now, when it came to the 4th place spot, there was a lot of cars to choose from. This is the 110,000 credit mark, and there are loads within this. The Corvette ZL1 is one possibility. Fairly mental car, this one. Kind of like it because it's a bit mental. But yeah, rather scary with it. We have the SRT Viper, slightly less mental, still pretty damn mental though. Again, another car, 110,000 credits. All of these vehicles are around the same towards the kind of lower end of A-Class. We then have the mentalness from Italy, the Lamborghini Diablo. I was amazed actually this was 110,000 credits. I was expecting this car to be a little bit more expensive, and it certainly gets some coolness points for having pop-up headlights, because as we all know, any car with with pop-up headlights is yeah, instantly much better. Again, the Diablo is another car. I do quite like the Diablo. It's just typical Lamborghini-ness in it. And then there is, of course, the Nissan GTR. Now, all of these cars kind of deserve to be on this list. However, I didn't want to have the list comprised of just 110,000 credit cars, because these are, I wouldn't say they're all fairly similar, they're all very, very different, but they're all roughly around the similar sort of speed. So I was going to pick one of them. It is not going to be the GTR. As I have said quite a few times, I'm not a massive fan of the GTR. While I appreciate it is an absolute monster, it's kind of a computer-controlled monster that I can't help but feel could go around a track very quickly without me driving it. That's why I'm personally not a massive fan of the GTR, but yeah, don't get me wrong, incredibly quick car. The vehicle, though, that I'm going to name in the 4th spot is, of course, going to be the Dodge Viper ACR. This is still a phenomenal car to drive. I really, really do like the way this car drives. The handling it's a little changed from Forza 4. On Forza 4, if you asked me how to make a car handle, this is the answer, pretty much. I loved how this car drove on Forza 4. It was set up absolutely perfectly for me. On 5, it's a tiny bit different, but not massively different. It's enough different to make it just a little bit annoying, but still very, very good to drive. Because despite being a 600 horsepower V10 super muscle car, this thing will stick to the road. It is so hard to make this, well, it used to be so hard. It's now not quite as hard. It still does not want to go sideways. It still wants to grip the road. And I don't know how they've done it. I have no idea how they have turned, how they made this car turn corners and drive so well. Again, I'm fairly sure there is some magic involved in this car, because it is ridiculously good through the corners. You can be very late on the brakes, you get it turned in, you can put the power down far earlier than most rear-wheel drive cars. I mean, we're talking sort of mid-A class now. And you can put 600 horsepower down on the road out of slow corners with very little worry on a game where cars traditionally spend a lot of time sliding around. That is how good this car is. Sure, the GTR will do exactly the same. It's not surprising. It's four-wheel drive. If you were trying to do this in the Corvette or the Diablo, yeah, they'd probably have some more problems around this track. Yeah, the ACR Viper, incredibly good value for money, incredibly fast around a track. In 3rd, we go to the most expensive car on our list, the Hennessey Venom. well, it may cost over 500,000 credits, 570,000. It is quite a lot. However, it is by far the fastest car on this list. It's a ridiculous thing, this. It will literally destroy your sense of speed. After you drive this car, everything else feels slow. Apart from perhaps a Veyron Supersport, but it's just mental. By the end of this straight at Road Atlanta, you'll be doing 210. You'll probably be doing more if I got my braking points right. I had a couple of scares down here, as you will see. I have a wheel on the grass. Don't put a wheel on the grass. It is a stupid idea in a very, very powerful car. Somehow I still managed to get it stopped. And yeah, this is an insane thing. The most impressive thing about it though, not the speed, not the acceleration, it is the fact that the car is still drivable. You take a Veyron and they're so difficult to drive because of the weight. I think the Veyron Supersport weighs nearly 4,000 pounds, whereas this is, I think it's 2,000, I've forgotten, 2,800, 2,600, sorry, is almost half the weight of the Veyron, which means that it is actually drivable. Still incredibly tricky. It's not an easy car to drive this with traction control off, as it has so much power, so much torque. However, it can be driven, and it will get stopped for corners. Yeah, it is an absolutely mental machine, this one. The road textures have gone. What I don't know what the things are broken. What's going on there? Not seen that bug glitch / weirdness before. But anyway, yes, the Venom. Okay, it is quite a lot of money, but you get a hell of a lot of car for that money. And considering this is pretty much half the price of the Veyron Supersport, I most definitely recommend you get this one. Yeah, it's a great vehicle. In second, we have a TVR. Yes, this was I suspect this will surprise most of you that I put a TVR Sagaris in second place. This car costs 61,000 credits. It's just into A class. Okay, it's a little bit expensive. It's 10,000 credits more than the Camaro and less than 10 PI higher. However, this car is excellent. It is just a fun vehicle to drive. Yes, it's absolutely bonkers. The exhausts stick out at silly angles. There's weird vents and bulges all over the bodywork, and it wouldn't surprise me, being a TVR, to have the ignition in the passenger footwell, because it's just utterly balmy. It is just a stupid car. However, it is huge amounts of fun to drive. I don't think I've had as much fun driving this with any other cars on this list. It is just ridiculously good fun to drive. It will slide, it'll do all of that kind of thing. However, and this is a kind of a big however, you can get it to drive normally if you want. You probably won't. You'll probably never drive this car sensibly. You will mess around with it. And as I said, for 61,000 credits, it is worth every penny of it just for messing around. However, if you are very careful, you can actually drive this car fairly quickly. It is a good car to drive. If you want to. If you want to make it go round corners properly and not be sideways and taking out cones, you can do that. You probably won't be though. This is a phenomenally fun car to drive. Again, another one that might get overlooked a little bit. I really recommend you give this car a drive. I have no doubt you will love the TVR. Also, one of the very few cars, and probably the only car that can get away with this sort of, I can't remember, is it like pearlescent? Is that what it's called? Paint job. It just suits a TVR. You put this on any other car, or most other cars, it looks utterly stupid. It all comes together to form one load of crazy silliness that, yeah, I really quite like. It's just, it's an incredible vehicle. And in first place, there really wasn't going to be any other outcome to this. It is the Ariel Atom V8. This thing costs a mere 170,000 credits. It is an R-Class car. It's a midway through R-Class as well. This thing is insanely fast. It's just mind-bendingly fast. Okay, it doesn't quite have the top speed of the Venom. It will probably accelerate as quickly as the Venom. After about 100, I should think the Venom will start to pull away because it's got a hell of a lot more power than this. Straight line speed is not really the Atom's thing. Acceleration is absolutely phenomenal. Cornering is an interesting thing. Again, this car is insanely hard to drive. One of the hardest cars to drive I think I've driven on Forza 5. You will do this. You will do that quite a few times while trying to get used to the V8 Atom because it is incredibly twitchy. Now, one of the downsides with the more slidiness, if that is a thing, of Forza 5 is it makes some cars that should be better drive. This and the KTM Crossbow, both of these, and the Lotus 211 for that matter, they suffer from this slidiness that I don't think the cars would have in real life. I think these cars would be a little bit more grippy. However, as we get some more sliding, once you've got used to it, you can get this car going around corners, and when you have got it all hooked up, when you go around that corner, it'll be ridiculously fast. It'll be phenomenally quick through the corners because it just doesn't weigh anything. It's got incredible brakes, incredible acceleration. Yeah, for 170,000 credits, you cannot go faster than this. I am fairly sure even trying to build a car for that money, you wouldn't go faster than the V8 Atom. That may well be a challenge at some point, because this thing is just absolutely insane. Incredibly scary to drive, incredibly tough to drive. You will spend a lot of time facing the wrong way for the first few laps. Once you get the hang of it though, you will be glad you persisted with it, because yes, it really is rather good fun. Anyway, that is it for this top 10 list. It took a while. It took a while compiling this list and trying to decide what should go where. There are a few cars that could have made it and almost made it. Yeah, it took a while figuring this one out. But I hope people aren't too angry and shouting at me. They probably will when I missed out the GTR. But never mind, ignore that, quick run away. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. And until next time, goodbye.